Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast, part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. I'm Tara Bowen-Biggs, this is Dan Meringue, and we're here to talk about what is happening with the Portland Trailblazers. How you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing.
Yeah? Well, we got an important question that we need to answer right off the top.
It's just one of those things, right?
All right, well, here's what I need to know. What are we going to call Pat Connaughton? What's his nickname?
I'm more valuable than Alan Crabb, but that's probably too long, right? Can we shorten that?
IMVTAC.
I mean, that's really the important part right now. I saw Kevin Pelton had put something out on Twitter during the game, the revival of Pat Connaughton, and we could call it the Connaissance.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that.
I was like, that's not bad. But I mean,
I like
he's doing whatever he needs to do right now, and that's my favorite kind of Pat Connaughton, is the one that does what he needs to do.
Yeah. Did Patty Mills, did he already go by Patty Buckets?
I don't know. He was always just Patty when he was here, or Patty Cakes, I think.
Yeah.
I think Patty Cakes was a pretty popular one.
Because Patty Fastball, people have been taught, like, that's his baseball nickname is Patty Fastball. I mean, but I'm thinking Patty Buckets. I mean,
if he throws a few more dunks down like that alley-oop that CJ tossed him, I
love that so much.
If there's one thing I miss about Mason Plumlee, it's dunks.
Yes, like backwards dunks.
Third in the NBA in dunks when he was in Portland. Losing him, we definitely lost a huge percentage of dunks. So having that back, if he's able to do that semi-regularly. And I mean, we're not calling him Air Pat or anything, but
well, CJ and Patty Buckets were talking about that in the post-game show after the game against Phoenix about how they were looking for that one. And it was nice to know that they are looking for my favorite basketball play, which is the alley-oop. I'm glad those guys have my needs in mind.
For anybody who didn't catch the interview post-game with CJ talking about that play, it was absolutely hilarious because CJ got to the point where he was like, normally I look for it, and more often than not, I'm just like, nah. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, he doesn't trust anybody on this team to go up and go get one. That's all I could think was like, we don't really have anybody that's a real big time high flyer. And then he starts talking about it. He goes, and then I saw Pat turn the corner and like my eyes lit up and I'm like, see, he's looking at Pat and he knows Pat's got bounce. So he probably feels a little more comfortable throwing that up to him. For a lot of people want to question Pat's measurements at the combine and his vertical. I think he showed on that play, and he's done it a few times, that those aren't, that measurement is not a joke. He's got some serious bounce.
Yeah, didn't he record like one of the highest vertical leaps at the combine ever? Yeah,
I think it was 44 inches. I'm trying to remember off memory, but it was something absurd, like double what 99% of the world is capable of doing. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I worked out, I could probably come close. But anyway, let's get into it because we got a lot to cover. News and notes, really pretty much the biggest thing that the Blazers have looked at over the last few days. And just to let people know, it is Sunday night while we're recording this. So as of Sunday night, the biggest news is probably that Myers Leonard is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, with what he's calling the second worst sprain of his career. He was seen in a walking boot, which is a bummer because even though he was getting very limited playtime, the minutes that he was on the floor had been encouraging. People want to make jokes about, how he's dedicated, laser focused, blah, blah, blah. Really, when he's been on the floor, the few minutes he was out there against Boogie, looked really good, caused Boogie to get 2 or 3 turnovers in the span of like 4 or 5 minutes. The other game that he came in and knocked down some threes and kept Portland in it. So Definitely
That's
a
a bummer for him.
because,
It feels like he's a little snake bitten.
Yeah, when he comes back, Vonleh's going to be back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, where does that put him now in the rotation? So that's you just kind of feel bad for the dude. So
yeah, you feel bad for him. It's a good question because Vonleh has spoken about coming back, and he's targeting November 1st. So we will see if he's able to make it back.
He's going to want his minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so the Blazers are right now currently, what are they, 4-2?
4-2.
And they've played 3 games since the last time we talked. I'll just go over them super quick. There was the home opener. That was the 17th home opening night victory, which is pretty impressive.
17th in a row.
17th in a row. Yes, exactly. Over the Pelicans. CJ led the Blazers with 23 points. Anthony Davis, unfortunately, left early with a bump on his knee. He turns out he's okay. Unfortunate for him.
Yeah, considering his performance last night where he went off for 30 and 10 plus again. So, yeah I think 80's okay.
So for this game, DeMarcus Cousins ended up being the guy who went off for 39 points. Damian only scored 13 points. The two of them, Dame and CJ, were combined for only 7 points at the half. That was the strangest thing to look up and see that.
That's
on the
probably
scoreboard.
For those two as starters. That's probably the lowest they've ever contributed.
And I think Damian only had 2. So we'll talk about what's going on with Damian in a little while, but. Despite that, the Blazers ended up winning the game, and they had 43 bench points, which is not something that we've heard for a while.
That's a nutty number.
Yeah, they pulled it off. So, I don't know. Any thoughts? Quick thoughts on that game? What you saw?
For the most part, I think it went well enough, considering it was the first kind of adversity they dealt with outside of the Bucks game. Mm-hmm. Then they just kind of wrestled control and they let Boogie just be Boogie and took care of everything else as they should. Mm-hmm. I think their defense in that game was what allowed them to win, even though Dame and CJ were struggling drastically. The commitments to the other side of the ball, and this is something that we talked about coming into the season, is that not every night is your offense going to be just clinking or clicking.
Yeah.
It's been clinking lately.
I was going to say that's a good word for it lately.
Yeah, it's been clinking lately, that's for sure. But your defense can make up for that on nights, and I think the Pelicans game was definitely one of those nights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they got back to the fundamentals and were able to pull it. So after the Pelicans game, they played the Clippers. Damian Lillard led the Blazers with 25 points in a 104-103 heartbreaking loss to the Clippers on Blake Griffin's last buzzer-beating shot. Oh, that was just heartbreaking.
And there was a lot of things in that. People want to blame Dame for getting caught on the screen and not switching correctly. CJ for missing the free throw. And I think like the Bucks game, there was just some really crappy execution down the stretch. That you're not going to just contribute to one guy. The Bucks game, you had Giannis who just made some incredible plays. He had 2 steals and a block. Some issues there that just kind of compounded on each other on each possession. The Blazers kind of did that again with the Clippers and again in the final seconds. That's not a promising trend when they've been in the crunch time against a decent to good or great opponent that they've kind of buckled. But I think there's things that they can learn from and grow from, because even though the Blazers are 4-2, and we'll get to this a little bit later, there's still a lot for them to work on. And in this game in particular, Dame chucked up an awful lot of shots. I think he started 1 of 9 from the field. So 1 of 9 or 2 of 9, 2 of 10, and he just kept chucking. And the idea that shooters shoot is great, but Dame's not so limited that his only effect on the offense is shooting. Like, yeah, he can pull it from 40 feet and hit. That's definitely in his bag. But when you're not hitting, find a way to get yourself going in other ways. Keep running the pick and roll, because he's one of the best pick and roll guards in the entire league. If he commits to that and gets other guys going, then it frees things up for him a bit more. Or they continue to focus on him and he can continue to attack off the dribble and get things done that way. Work your way in. Don't continue to jack up some of those shots. I think that kind of reared its head as it dug Portland a hole deeper than they needed to be in. That's not solely on Dame. I just think that as the guy, I think he's got to realize that a little bit sooner.
There were a couple things that stood out to me about that game. And one was that DeAndre Jordan only had 7 points, but he had no personal fouls. How does that happen?
I mean, I don't want to get into this one too much because I was losing my mind about how the game was officiated.
Okay.
It was crappy. I mean, to put it in a blunt terms.
Yeah, but you said that you're not someone who complains about the refs.
No, it wasn't that Portland wasn't getting calls or were getting calls or the Clippers. It was inconsistent.
Okay.
I thought that a lot of stuff on the inside was let go and the stuff on the perimeter was called really tightly but inconsistently, and that really hurt Portland. And DeAndre Jordan not fouling. DeAndre is a great defensive player, but he fouls. Patrick Beverley, he fouls. Austin Rivers, he fouls. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that are really physical, really handsy. They've got some veteran savvy. The Clippers are a team that should be racking up a foul a minute. So when those numbers are that skewed, that's a little off. But again, those aren't things that Portland should be blaming entirely as far as the loss goes. There are definitely things that they should be working through.
I think that's the only game that they've played so far this year that they were out-rebounded. It was only by 2. They were only out-rebounded by 2, but it was the only one where they were out-rebounded so far this year.
Yeah, and Portland got a ton of offensive rebounds in that game, but the problem was the Clippers almost kept pace with them in that department. And that's really what probably decided the game, was that the Blazers couldn't quite secure all those.
Yeah. Well, and the bench was a lot quieter against the Clippers. They didn't come anywhere near the production they'd had the night before, although Ed Davis did add 10 rebounds. Oh, my God, I'm loving Ed Davis so much this year. Finally, to get caught up on the Phoenix game, the Blazers pulled out a victory. It was 114-107, which felt like it was a lot closer than that, actually.
Yeah.
They were behind Damian Lillard's 25 points and game high 11 rebounds by Ed Davis once again. Devin Booker led the Suns with 34 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists, so he had a big night.
The Suns in general had their, hey, our coach got fired, so let me go ahead and play harder for 3 weeks so nobody blames me for the coach getting fired.
Right.
That's really what's going on.
But even before the coach got fired, I was concerned about this being a trap game.
Yeah, we talked about it coming into the season. Like, this was that game we were all kind of looked at like, the Suns are just a team that has given Portland headaches in the past, and this looks like an ample opportunity for them to kind of step right into it. But they didn't have the guy in Eric Bledsoe who was probably causing some of the issues, but was also the guy that caused a lot of issues for Portland and Damian Lillard in the past. So, but I think Booker more than made up for that. I mean, Booker showed why he's looked at as such a prize player. I mean, he's 21 years old and he's 34, 6-6, and he hadn't done anything really in the first 20 minutes, and then he just went absolutely ham. I mean, he just blew up. To me, he's the second or third most explosive scorer in the game, in that he's one of a handful of guys that can absolutely go on a 5-minute tear that fills up an entire frame. Like, he is a guy who can legitimately drop 25 points in a quarter and just kind of go, what happened? He just gets on fire. And thankfully, he didn't have a ton of support. Otherwise, Portland could have been looking at a loss in that game. But their youth and inexperience up and down the roster kind of played through there at the end, and they gave up on a few defensive possessions. And that pretty much decided it.
And a win is a win. We'll take it. Especially at this point.
1-2 to start the season is nothing to be angry about.
Right. Well, so we have seen, now that we've seen more than just a couple of games, I think it's a good time to start talking about some of the players who are standing out, because it's kind of a different cast than we have talked about previously. Usually, we're at this point, we're talking about Dame and CJ and how fantastic they've been. They've had, at least Dame's had a few struggles, but that also means that some other people have stood up. So let's talk about them.
Yeah, I mean, Portland's in a position where they are because of total contributions. Like, nobody's really had, with the exception of CJ. CJ's had some good games, but no other Blazers had an explosive night. Like, it just where you're sitting there going, wow, that stat sheet looks phenomenal. You can talk about Pat Connaughton maybe in the opening night, the 9 of 14 in place of CJ. So he was basically giving you CJ's production. So, yeah, I mean, to have guys be able to talk about guys like Turner, Aminu, Connaughton, Davis, it's reassuring that not everything is riding on the shoulders of the big three.
So a couple things, still waiting to call them the big three. You had me thinking the other night when you were saying, we were talking about Nurkic earlier, about whether or not his production is still shaky at this point, where it's going to go. Is he enough to be the third leg of the stool to hold them all up? And you had a point where you were like, hey, if he's given us 15 and 8, that's not a bad thing. That's regular production, that there's nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, I'm coming around to that, but I'm still not sure.
It's the efficiency with him right now. Like he's putting up 13 and 8 and a block a game. Mm-hmm. And he's had some rough games in that stretch.
And there's nothing to sneeze at.
No, but it's also not max contract numbers either. So yeah. I'm nearly certain that's playing a part in that he wants to do everything. Because he wants to get that. I mean, if you're in that position, if you're putting yourself in his shoes, don't you want a max contract? I mean, I would. So you go into the summertime and you lose a ton of weight. You do everything you can. You smile for all the cameras. You kiss all the babies. I mean, it's like a political campaign. People don't want to admit that about professional sports, but that's part of getting that big time money. Is not just your on the court stuff. It's how you market yourself and how you present yourself. And he's been phenomenal in that capacity ever since he got here. So I think there's a little bit of pressure on him that maybe is translating on the floor. Maybe that's why he's rushing a few things. He's shooting under 40% from the field. So that's something to watch. And the fouls, and that's something another thing we talked about. He's found himself in foul trouble quite a bit. So he's got to clean a few things up, but he's far and away from being a big time issue. Let's just put it this way: the Blazers are 4-2, even with him playing suboptimally. So if he gets his stuff together, this is something that could easily turn into him being 16, 17 and 9, 17 and 10, and the Blazers being a dominating force in the Western Conference. I mean, that's if he gets anywhere near efficiency standards, then we're looking at a big time difference in how this season could go.
Well, let's say that the big three end up gelling, and we see that within the next few games, or within even the next several games. There's still other players who have been stepping up this year. Now, you said I think you said it kind of tongue in cheek the other night when you tweeted out something about Aminu. Is he actually the third best player on the team? Tell me more about that, because actually I'm just going to sit here and enjoy it, because I've been talking about Al-Farouq Aminu for a couple of years now. He's always been one of my favorite Blazers to watch, and I will admit that I've always loved his defense, and we all know that his offense is chaotic, but I've always felt that he had a lot of potential. And I'm kind of starting to see it come to fruition, and I'm kind of excited. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Yeah,
when I tweeted that out, it was kind of more just kind of thinking out loud. Like, is Aminu the third best player, or has he been the third best player on this roster? And the more I looked at it, the more I was convinced that was the case. I mean, he has
By what measures?
By nearly every measure. I mean, he's averaging 10 points a game. He's shooting almost 50% from the floor. He's shooting above 50% from three. He's rebounding the ball like a madman. He's had some unbelievable blocks. His help defense and on-ball defense are at the best of what I've seen from him in his time here. He's impacting the game in every manner, and he's removed himself from, the stupid plays. Like, Al-Farouq Aminu has limitations. Nobody's going to argue that. I think the biggest issue that people have ever had with Aminu is that he's put himself in a position to where those limitations are glaring, like, dribbling the ball in anywhere. Putting the ball down on the floor in the open court just isn't that's not his bag. He is not the Austin Powers of dribbling. That's not his bag. We're not even going to tempt him with that. But knocking down corner threes, he's saying, I'm here for that.
There have been times, though, when he's put it on the floor and he's been successful with it.
One dribble, gather, dunk, or layup, I'm perfectly okay with. Dribbling through traffic or dribbling through people from above the three-point line, not a huge fan of. He's got to do it occasionally to make people honor the pump fake, so I get that. But I think he's found kind of the perfect pace of when and when not to do that.
So you think some of his improvement is based on him just decision making?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. He's taking and making the shots and opportunities that are presented. He's not trying to force things, and I think that is the exact opposite has been true with Harkless. Harkless has had some okay games, but he's been pretty mediocre in a lot of departments on the offensive end, and I think Aminu has helped bail a lot of guys out in a lot of different places. He's hit some late shot clock threes that have I'm sitting there screaming, please don't pass it to him. And then it's just out of habit. And they kick it to him in the corner and he shoots it. I'm good. No. Oh, shoot. Okay.
That is what you get for doubting Aminu.
Hey, he had that one run. It was I think it was the Clippers game where he was 4 of 5 or 3 of 4 or 4 of 4 on his first couple of threes. And it got to the point where I think I even said it on Twitter. I'm like, hey, if the ball ends up in Aminu's hands in the quarter, he's got an open 3, shoot it. I don't care. He's on one right now. Let him have it. And
by the end of that game, they were actually guarding him.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, if all of a sudden, if Aminu, he's not going to hold at 50%. He's going to have a cold spell here, and it's going to suck when it comes.
Oh, ye of little faith. Come on, Dan.
It's going to suck when it happens because he's going to go through like a 7-game stretch where he shoots like 26%. That's just the law of numbers. That's how it's going to work its way around. But if he can hold anywhere near 40%, that's a big-time change in the scouting report for opponents as they come into Portland because they aren't looking at Aminu as the guy. I mean, they're looking at, we can cheat off him. If he's out there at 40%, you can't cheat.
I believe in him. I've actually been watching games a little bit differently lately. I've been watching, instead of watching the ball, I've been trying really hard to just watch people. Mm-hmm. So just like trace one person through a whole quarter or at least through a whole series of plays. It's really hard to do that, actually. But I've been spending a lot of time watching Aminu. And one of the things that I noticed watching Aminu on defense is that he's not actively involved in a lot of defensive plays because people are just not passing to whoever it is he's guarding. It's
for any football fans. It's what, as a Raiders fan, I call the Charles Woodson theory. Charles Woodson, when he was a Heisman winner out of Michigan as a cornerback, his first couple of years in the league, he led the league in interceptions, passes defense, and then his numbers fell off. He was still a Pro Bowler, but his numbers fell off. And I had a bunch of people ask me, why are numbers falling off? Like, he's not the same. Like, no, they just don't throw that way. That entire side of the field, for a recent memory here, when Richard Sherman was in his prime, they just don't throw there. It's the same kind of thing when you have an elite defender. You just don't attack that area. Aminu can do that. It's Avery Bradley for now with the Pistons. He's like, when you get a guy that's that, like Draymond Green for the Warriors, if you get Draymond on an island, you're not going to want to go at him one-on-one over and over and over again. It's just the numbers don't add up in your favor unless your name's Giannis, Kevin Durant, or LeBron James.
Yeah, then there's nothing anybody can do.
Yeah, I mean, but otherwise, it's just smart to go after Dame or to go after CJ. Why go after the Blazers' strongest defender? And if he's taking away and neutralizing somebody, great. I mean, are there going to be issues for him? Certainly. Was he mismatched against Blake Griffin? Yeah. Blake's got 35 pounds on him. I mean, that's having Aminu guard Griffin for spurts is a good thing. It's a different look. But for long periods of time where Blake is initiating the offense from the mid or high post with his back to the basket and he's going to back Aminu down and then make a decision when the defense is collapsed, that's an issue. So, but is that a shot at Aminu? No, that's just, he's a stretch forward. He's not a power forward. He's just small forward playing the power forward. He's a big small forward. But yeah, I mean, otherwise he's been fantastic on both sides of the ball. And really, I don't think you could ask much more of him as far as his contribution is concerned this season. He's checking all the boxes. He's playing defense. He's knocking down threes. He's finishing at the rim. He's hitting in transition. He's blocking shots. He's been the Blazers rebounding leader a couple times this season. Like, he's done a ton every single night. He's only had one game that was off. So, I mean, and
that was just on offense.
Yeah, he's still getting contributions from. I believe that was the game where he ended up with like 12 or 13 rebounds.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's still finding a way to get it done night in, night out, and that's huge.
I can't believe I have to cut you off talking about Aminu. I'm so excited. This is a wonderful day.
It was
but we got to move on.
It was a fun thing for me when I said that on Twitter. Like, it legitimately is Aminu the third best player right now, and it wasn't a shot at the other guys. It was Aminu's really playing that well.
Well, I want to talk about a couple other players, and this was actually a very hot topic of conversation we have Women's Hops and Talks has a Facebook group, and we had a big discussion about the Swanigan versus Collins playing time. And I know that you have some strong opinions on who's playing, Swanigan or Collins. Mm-hmm. Now, in the last game, in the Phoenix game, Collins got playing time and Swanigan did not. How do you feel about that, Dan?
I'm not a fan of playing a guy who isn't ready. And Collins, again, this is only 7 minutes, but he racked up 3 fouls in 7 minutes. And how is he going to learn if he doesn't get playing time? Yada, yada. I get it. I understand what other people's arguments are. But when I look at Collins, I just don't see a guy that's anywhere close to ready. When you look at Swanigan, even though he's making rookie mistakes, and you got to allow guys to get on the floor. I understand that. But Swanigan,
so how are they going to get on the floor if they don't play? I mean,
you play him
you
in
have
garbage
to do
time.
it.
You play him in garbage time. That's when you allow him to do it. Swanigan is going to make mistakes, but he plays like a guy that's already been in the league for a few years. He's not making the same rookie level mistakes. He doesn't have what appear to be the jitters. Like, he looks like he belongs out there. Collins just doesn't look like he belongs. That's okay, because 90% of most rookies don't look like they belong. But at the same time, you also don't play those guys. If they don't look ready, they probably aren't ready. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's not. I'm reading too much into this, but it feels like that they're playing Collins to justify moving up to pick him.
I think that's a stretch. I think they're playing Collins because I think, again, in that Phoenix game, I think it was a calculated risk. And and Coach Stotts is like, we need to give him some meaningful minutes in NBA time. And this seems like a safe time to do it because this is probably a game that we should win. And if Collins goes in there and he has a rough time, I can take him back out and we have plenty of time. Otherwise, if I don't play him now, we might not be playing him at all. And these guys, he needs to go in and feel those NBA game minutes.
I understand that, but be like all the other guys that aren't ready and play garbage time. That's really how I look at it, is that if he wants to get him some minutes, they're still NBA minutes. He's still going up against NBA caliber, even if it is the end of a bench. Just let him get comfortable. Because, talking to
Do you think he looked spooked after he played? I mean, I know he had 3 fouls.
Yeah, no, he was all over the place. He didn't. The game looked like it was moving at 2 times speed for him. Was he completely lost? No, he was just, everything was just too fast for him still. And this isn't me taking shots at Collins, because I already know how the comment section is going to go on this. I just don't think he's ready. And then just let him get some time. I mean, we've heard this from numerous scouts and executives around the league who either questioned or understood the pick. He's still a kid. This is a guy who hasn't started on a team in 5 years. He started 1 year in high school. So, I mean, let's let him get some real basketball time under his belt. Sit back, absorb the NBA, the culture, the lifestyle, the day-to-day, all that stuff. Because there's a ton that goes around in the background that people don't understand or aren't aware of before we put him out there. Let him get a good if anything, I would say give him targeted games if you're gonna do this.
But my point on this one is I would think Phoenix was probably a targeted game.
I don't know, when the score's that tight and you're playing like crap, I wouldn't throw him out there.
It was the beginning of it, and he was I think he was playing against, was he up against Dragon Bender?
Dragon Bender, yeah.
Dragon Bender. I mean, so like he's not a big guy. It wasn't like they sent him in against Boogie.
No, and I think they were smart in not putting him up against Boogie or putting him up against Giannis or something like that. I saw a few other people talking about a few games before. But I mean,
I get what you're saying about not wanting to rattle a guy and have his confidence drop off.
Let's put it this way. I don't want to see what happened to him, what happened to Myers.
Right. I get that, but when I saw him in summer league, he looked shook to the core.
Yeah.
After his game and a half that he
Does
played.
Does he look better than that now?
I think he looks much better.
Certainly, but he's still. Things look like they're moving way too fast for him still. And again, that's common. Like that's a normal, especially for bigs. There's a reason why they say it takes bigs 4 to 5 years. Because it's the most difficult position to play defensively because of where you need to be and who you need to help and how you need to adjust and everything that goes along with it. That's why it takes so long for those guys to fully develop. Not to mention the physicality that comes along with it, which is obviously his biggest shortcoming right now. So I think he's a little behind the 8 ball in both senses. So.
Well, you were not alone in that assessment. That's what most of the women on Women's Hops and Talks were saying. They were thinking that the minutes would have been better going towards Swanigan, or just because Swanigan, as you said, appears to be more ready with the speed of the game, and
and maybe it's not the right matchup, and maybe there's a lot of maybes here, and maybe if Vonleh's healthy, Collins doesn't even see the floor that night.
That's another thing. I feel like this is the time to get Collins in because Vonleh's coming back and those minutes are going to be scarce. So let him get some run. Let him get some play.
I mean, those minutes.
I mean, they're going to be more scarce for everybody, not just Collins. I mean.
It's like Swanigan probably will be in the position that Collins is in here, like going forward. He'll probably get 7 minutes a night. He'll come in and play one shift. If somebody gets in foul trouble, he'll be the guy that comes in that position. Because when Vonleh comes back, you get some utility with Vonleh for both the power forward and center position. So yeah, and it's not. I
just don't have a problem with it.
Scheme of things. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I just, from my personal view, I would go about it differently. But I have a different take on why he's being played. So maybe that's skewing it.
Well, let's move on, and let's talk about a topic that is, I think, starting to be on people's mind, and that is the offense actually struggling? People have watched Dame have a harder time scoring than usual, missing a lot of shots, like you were saying. He's taking a lot of shots. Not a lot of them are going in. Even CJ's gotten off to some slow starts. He's managed to keep his numbers at a, scoring at a reasonable clip, but he does have times where it takes him a while to get into it. Nurkic is not maybe putting up the numbers that a lot of people have been thinking. However, the Blazers are still 4-2. Their offensive rating overall, do you have that up handy?
I do not, but I can because I'm gifted like that. Also, I have a laptop in front of me pretty much all the time. You want their O rating? Yeah, it's kind of funny. We're sitting here talking about, is Portland's offense struggling? I'm doing air quotes right now because nobody can see me. For a team who has an offensive rating of 109.9, that's third best in the NBA behind the Warriors and the Magic. God, it's just weird to see.
It's an upside down topsy-turvy world right now.
The top 5 offenses in the league right now are the Warriors, Magic, Blazers, Pacers, and Pelicans, according to offensive rating. So it lets you know what kind of season this has been. It's a little weird to talk about Portland's offense struggling when they're basically getting buckets. It's just that they're getting buckets just not efficiently at all. It
feels hard.
Yeah, like they're having to work their butt off for every basket, and it's cool. They're still finding a way to get it done. I mean, they're averaging 111 points per game. That's 5th in the NBA. The problem is they're shooting 43% from the floor, which is 23rd. What's saving their bacon is that they're the best percentage-wise three-point team in the league. The problem here is that's not sustainable.
Yeah. What are they shooting from three right now?
43.9.
Thank you, Al-Farouq Aminu.
Really, it's Pat Connaughton, CJ McCollum, and Al-Farouq Aminu are all lighting it up. Pat and Aminu are both above 50% on 20-plus attempts apiece, I believe. And CJ's at like 44, 45%. So those three guys have just been on a tear from outside. And really, that's been the difference in some of these wins, which is why maybe being a little worried here isn't so far-fetched. There are a couple categories where Portland is blowing teams out of the water. One of them is three-pointers made and three-point percentage. The other one is offensive rebounds. They are the best offensive rebounding team in the league, 14.2 a game.
Wait, can I just put something about offensive rebounds? And I keep thinking this every night, and I feel terrible for thinking this. But are they getting so many offensive rebounds because they're missing a lot?
So many shots. Yes, they're presenting. I feel
terrible about that.
No, I mean, but if you're making up for it by getting those, if you're also pushing the pace on getting more possessions from what you were a year ago, then you can change those things around. So I wanted to take a look at the offense as a whole. And this comes with a caveat, as always, with the incredibly small sample size, because we're talking about 6 games here. But what Portland's offense has done compared to last year based on a percentage. So they're actually scoring more 2-point field goals right now as a percentage, or excuse me, taking more 2-pointers than they were last year as a total percentage of the offense. And that's by about 3% more. But the percentage of their points from 2-point range is dropped by almost 7%.
Okay, so they're taking more 2-pointers shots altogether. They're taking more shots from the 2-point range altogether.
And their total percentage of points is down. So that's a bad ratio. And they're shooting about the same in the mid-range. So that lets you know that that's in the paint, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Now, they're taking less threes, but they're actually getting a higher percentage of points from 3 than they did last year. And the biggest difference is fast break points. Last year, 10.5% of their points came from the fast break. This year, under 5%.
Wow.
That's a pretty hefty drop-off. Now, they're making up for it by getting to the free throw line.
Why do you think they're taking their so many fewer opportunities in fast break?
I don't know, because they've been pushing the ball early on as far as the pace was concerned. The preseason and the first couple games was the same. Now, is it the opponents that they're playing? Because they kind of got out into a grind game with the Bucks as well as the Clippers. Could that have been an impact on the pace and the fast break points and how they set up? Certainly, but also part of that is going to be personnel and how they play.
Mm-hmm. And taking Alan Crabb out of the equation isn't big. I wonder if losing Mason Plumlee.
Harkless has been, or actually Plumlee was too. Harkless and Plumlee have always been the guys that were the fast break scorers as far as the outside the normal guys between Dame and CJ. Nurkic is a guy that's going to run the floor effectively, but it's more about get post position than to score in transition.
That'll be something interesting to watch. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail your whole offensive discussion, but I was that seems...
It's a really good point, but we kind of get into like the points in the paint in general. The Blazers are down percentage-wise almost 6% there, and that's huge. So no fast break points and no points in the paint. So you're talking about 2 of the easiest sources of points, which is why some of these games have looked so difficult. Why you kind of clawing at yourself a little bit if you're sitting there watching a game going, why aren't we up more? Like, why is the score a lot closer than it should be? So the easier stuff hasn't really been there, and a lot of that is due to how crappy Portland has been in the paint. If you missed it the other day, Mike Richmond of the Oregonian put out a tweet referencing the Portland Trail Blazers field goal percentage inside of 5 feet. Excuse me. Now, there are certainly caveats here to small sample size, but the Blazers are so far behind everybody else, it's incredible.
In points in the paint.
Well, not just points in the paint, but effective points in the paint. The Blazers inside 5 feet are shooting under 43% as a team. The next team is the Phoenix Suns.
Less than 5 feet from the basket, they're shooting less than 43%.
42.9%. The next team, the next worst team, is 51.3%. We're almost 10% difference between the Suns. We're not talking about the offensive juggernauts here who get into the paint and score at will. The best team in the league is the Houston Rockets at 74.5%. So they're shooting 30% better than the Trailblazers are at less than 5 feet. And this, we're not talking about small sample size here in terms of attempts. The Blazers, here's the problem. The Blazers are third in average attempts inside 5 feet at 33 a game. The Lakers are number 1. The Clippers are number 2. So they're getting there a ton and they're missing a ton. That's a problem.
Why do you think they're missing so many?
Okay, part of this, and this is where I'm doing a little bit of chin rub, is Nurkic. Nurkic is one of the absolute worst in the NBA right now among centers inside 5 feet.
Okay, and you think that's attributed to that he's just rushing things, and that will come once he gets his rhythm.
He needs to get under control. I mean, he's got the footwork, he's got the talent, he's got the skill, he's got the size, and when we saw it in the second half of the game against the Suns the other night, like he was just god awful in the first half.
But he really came back and improved a lot.
He got himself under control and started hitting shots. So there's definitely plenty of hope, and there's not a ton of concern on my part, or should there be on anybody else's part, but it's something to keep your eye on. He's shooting 43.2% inside 5 feet. He's 7 foot tall. That should not be a thing.
He's only like 9 inches from the basket.
I mean, yeah, and he's huge. He's 200. This is kind of funny too. People talk about, or I kind of said it tongue in cheek about how maybe Nurkic should, eat a few more desserts and a few less vegetables, and Dame should go back to being an herbivore. Maybe that would help. Sarcasm aside, Nurkic still 270 pounds. Physical size. There's maybe 5 guys in the league all season long that he's going to be smaller than. So when I hear people like, well, maybe that lost weight, he's getting off balance and people are pushing him, and I'm no, there aren't people that are pushing Jusuf Nurkic around. That's not a thing, folks. He's still a monster in the paint.
We could probably both like push on him as hard as we could, and like together we couldn't even move him.
I don't know. I've got a pretty low center of gravity. I'm not much lighter than Nurk, so.
So you think you could knock him over?
I could push him off his spot. I can at least say that, if for nothing, just because I'm a foot shorter and the same size, basically. that center of gravity can be an issue. But it's been a kind of a bumpy road for him in terms of where he's getting his points from effectively. And not just him, really. It's been him and Damian and Harkless and CJ. CJ shooting 33%. And granted, that's on 3 attempts a game. The 4 guys who are getting at least 3 attempts a game are Dame, CJ, Harkless, and Nurkic. And Ed Davis. Ed Davis is the only one of those 5 guys who is over 45%, and he's at 45.5.
Wow, not much. It seems to me they've been running a lot more of their offense on the perimeter, but it sounds like what you're saying is the amount of offense they've been creating in the paint is not really significantly different than it was last year.
They're getting to the paint a little bit more than last year.
Okay.
But they're missing a metric ton of shots. So for reference here, the league average inside of 5 feet right now is 56.7%.
And what did you say the Blazers were shooting in between that same?
42.9. 15%.
So they're shooting 15% less. Wow. So, okay, do turnovers count against that, or is that a whole separate thing? Because I feel like I've noticed a lot of turnovers in that area.
The Blazers have been sloppy with the ball, and we've seen probably some turnovers in the paint, but that's not going to impact that line at all. But the Blazers are also, because they're going to the paint so much, they're rescuing themselves with offensive rebounds and free throw attempts. So that's a real saving grace. I wish that wasn't the case. I would like them to be able to get both the free throw attempts and finishing at the rim. Let's put it this way. The Blazers are 4-2. Good, great, grand. And things could be astronomically better. So that bodes well for them going forward if they can fix those things. If Dame cleans up his ability to finish inside and Nurkic cleans up his ability to finish inside, Nurk gets closer to 57%, Dame gets closer to 47, 48%. But Dame hasn't ever been the fantastic finisher at the rim. He's gotten better every year.
Why do you suppose? I mean, I felt like he'd made a pretty good leap last year in finishing the rim. What do you think's going on?
I think that's probably some noise. Part of it could be that he said it himself, that he's playing quicker.
Right. So his timing just might be off.
It could just be his timing. It could be the same thing with Nurkic. That's maybe why Nurkic is rushing things. Both those guys have lost a significant amount of weight. They said they're feeling quicker and lighter on their feet. Maybe it's just about a rhythm thing, and getting that under control will come as the season progresses, which would be great for Portland, because there's nothing more that could help them right now than finishing the most simple and efficient shot in the league. The shot right at the rim, because the Blazers are doing things across the board really well to make up for those. They're getting 27 free throws a game. It's number 5 in the NBA. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the league. They're the best 3-point shooting team as a percentage in the league. So they're making some serious headway in other categories to compensate for this. And that's probably why people are overlooking this a little bit, because they're still averaging 111 points a game, because they're finding ways to make up for this. But those aren't nearly as sustainable. Like offensive rebounding can fluctuate a ton depending on opponent. Field goal percentage is going to change night in and night out, but your ability to finish in the paint and to get reliant and easy points in the paint is huge. We've seen already officiating can decide big time as far as how free throws go. So those aren't things you can rely on, but simple things like finishing in the paint, that's huge. So consistency in those areas are key going forward.
So when I look at this year compared to last year, what I saw happen last year is, they came back after the summer with very little movement, and everything was all about continuity, and they were going to they're going to play this great defense, and they came out and they just could not put the defense together the way they wanted. Then their offense fell off, and then they just got in this spiral at the beginning of last season that it took them a long time to get out of, because they didn't have anything that they could fall back on that was working. I think the difference this year is that, at least so far, for the most part, that defense is working, and they have something that they can fall back on, that they can rely on, that for the most part is going to work. Every single defensive possession is not going to be successful. There was a play last night against Phoenix where Damian looked like Damian from last year, where he didn't make it through a screen, and suddenly everyone was like, oh no, there's the Damian we all know. And no, that was not a representative sample of how he's been playing this year.
That's going to happen to even the top flight defenders.
Exactly. He's been playing take a possession really well.
He needs to find this, and this is going to take some time. I understand that maybe this is a part of it. He needs to find the steady balance between committing 100% to defense, committing 100% to offense. Because realistically, as much as any fan wants it to be a thing, you can't play 100% on both ends of the floor for 38 minutes a night. That's just not a thing. Not in today's NBA. Not at the point guard position. You're put in way too many pick and roll possessions. The amount of energy and work you need to expend to be not just effective, but an elite player like Damian Lillard is astronomical. So if he takes a possession off here or there, and it sounds weird to excuse it, but that's just the reality of it. You want to do it without giving it away, in which Dame is prone to do. When he takes a possession off, it's pretty evident. Instead of dialing it down to 2, maybe keeping it at a 6 for that possession is a little bit better in the long run.
Right. Well, I guess what I'm saying is I would rather have this team struggle offensively, because we know without a doubt that they can
figure it out offensively.
They've figured it out offensively before. And what we've been waiting for is for them to show, really good, solid evidence that they've figured it out on D. And I feel like they've made really good strides in that. I'm not going to say they're perfect, but I'm going to say that I've seen some really good smart play. I've seen some, consistency, and I've seen across the board engagement, not just we know Aminu's got it. No, I've seen everybody all up and down working hard on it. So I think that bodes well, even if these first couple of games, like you said,
example,
been hard to watch.
If you want to talk about the other guys that, we want to see it from, CJ McCollum had Devin Booker late in the game against the Suns. And he put him in a straitjacket. It was essentially the possession that put the Suns out of the game. CJ probably fouled him in my mind, but he absolutely bottled him up. It was fantastic. The effort, the physicality, the commitment on that particular possession, evident. It was CJ saying, regardless of what the ref does here, you're not getting a clean look. And I honestly, that mentality in that part of the game, I love that. I want to see that night in and night out, because those are the difference between winning and losing games.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's not going to be so pretty right for a while they're focusing on defense, because defense isn't pretty.
No,
I mean, unless you like that kind of thing. Let's go ahead. Let's wrap up and talk about some of the upcoming games and what we might look for to tell whether or not they're coming out of this offensive slump against some of these upcoming opponents. So we've got
they're going to get tested real quick.
Right. So like I said, we're recording this on Sunday, and on Monday, the Blazers are going to be playing Toronto and then Utah and then the Lakers. So what are you going to watch for against any of those teams? Probably Toronto is the most significant opponent coming up in terms of, difficulty.
I debate that a little bit. I would say this: the Toronto game, and we'll know how ridiculous I sound by the time the podcast
very
comes
quickly.
Out, that the Toronto game has been historically one of the best games of the season for Portland. And I don't mean like that's a game that they're going to win. I just mean the game itself is incredibly competitive.
Right. The guard matchup is really good there.
I mean, Dame, CJ versus DeMar and Lowry. It's too bad we don't have LaMarcus, if for nothing else, because they have Serge Ibaka. The chance to have a fight between those two is near certain on a nightly basis. So that'll be a bummer. But maybe Nurkic can kind of fill the role there, because Ibaka is definitely very hateable. But that should be a good game and a good test. They're a lot like Milwaukee in the sense of how they like to go about their offense, penetrating to the rim and then look for the kick out. Valanciunas has been playing incredibly well. So that'll be a good matchup for Nurk in the paint. How Portland deals with the first big man threat, as far as I don't want to say old school, but a little bit more contemporary, or not contemporary, but I guess old school is the right idea, and how Valanciunas likes to play in the paint. The Utah game, though, is going to put a lot of strain on Portland's offense. If they can't get easy points, they're going to be in for a rough one. Gobert and Ekpe are patrolling the paint like no tomorrow for Utah.
Well, do you think that?
No, go ahead.
Do you think that with the struggles they've been having with the paint, somebody might be like, let's take more? We're shooting well from three. I mean,
the Utah's not going to give those shots up, though. That's the thing, is that they've got perimeter defenders in length. Donovan Mitchell, their rookie, he gets after it. I mean, that kid has got a motor like I haven't seen in a young player in a long time. It was something that I saw in him in summer league that made me. I think I had him number 3 on my rookie of the year board during the summer. I mean, he's a guy that he fits in perfectly with Utah's mentality and how they want to get after things. Rodney Hood offers a ton of length. Rubio is one of the most underrated defenders in the entire league. Obviously, they've got a defensive player of the year candidate in Gobert. Ingles is another guy that's incredibly underrated defensively. And then Ekpe, who kind of has revived his career here as a defensive stopper for Utah, is another guy that they bring off the bench that's a defensive nightmare. So there's no shortage of guys that they can throw at you to make your life a living hell offensively. I think that's a good test.
I guess what I'm wondering is, do you think that the Blazers are the ones who are making it harder on themselves, or do you think it's been the defenses that they've been up against?
Probably a little bit of both. There's some changes, obviously, physically for guys like Damian Nurkic. CJ, I'm guessing there's some noise there. The teams they have played, you've got DeAndre Jordan inside, you've got Giannis and
not fouling.
Yeah, and you've got guys like Giannis in the Bucks' entire lineup who's 6'8" or taller. Boogie, when he's committed, obviously can patrol the paint really well. So I mean, they've been up against some teams that defensively can bother teams in the paint, and maybe that's schedule wise. Tyson Chandler is certainly no slouch, whether or not he's 42 years old or not. He's still going to do things in there that are going to bother shots just by being there and being big. So there's probably a couple things at play. And again, it's not freak out time by any means, but certainly things to watch. And the good thing about the next 3 games is they're going to get tested against the Raptors and Jazz, and then they get the Lakers. That's a game that, like the Suns games, that there should be no doubt in that game. Those
are the ones that always worry me the most.
They can't go in there with that mentality. of we're gonna walk all over them. They need to come out and demonstrate that they're going to walk all over them, because then they get the Thunder, Grizzlies, Nets, Nuggets, and Magic. And now that sounds like, oh, it doesn't sound that bad when you're going into the season. Then you see the Nets are one of the highest scoring teams in the league. The Grizzlies have been maybe the best team in the league.
They're playing out of their minds.
And the Thunder, you don't know which team you're going to get. You're going to get the team that has all three of the superstars just clicking on every cylinder, or they're just going to be a complete disaster piece. So there really hasn't been any in between. And then you get a division matchup with the Nuggets and the Magic, who have just been lights out. So these next couple games are pretty important for them as far as setting the tone for the early part of the season, because then you start getting the road games. The Blazers are going to finish off this ridiculous 11 out of 13 at home, and then they're going to go out on the road for a while. So
it's a strange schedule.
Yeah, it's really goofy. It's nice that they can load up here if they get the wins, but if they stumble in this next block of games, it's gonna be a problem. So let's hope that they figure out this whole paint thing. Dame gets going, Nurkic gets going, and the defensive intensity stays the same. I think those are the three biggest things for the next 5 games. Can they fix this whole issue in the paint? Can they keep defending? And can they get Dame and Nurkic off? Like, can they get them off and running and get them where they're consistently getting the shots that they need to take and make?
One last question. For Nurkic, what would you consider locked in for him? I mean, for Damian, I would say, going back to at least averaging, 25 would be
25, 5 and 5 is
where I want to, where I believe we will soon see Dame going. But what do you think would be a good place for Nurkic to settle in, a comfortable place, a place where you think is attainable and, would make a big difference?
16, 17, 10 and 2. That's a very Nurkic stat line.
You mean 16 or 17 points, not 16 points and 17 rebounds.
No, I'd be all about that. I would be all about that. But no, I mean 16, 17 points, 10 boards, 2 blocks. If he's there and shooting above 50%, like 50, because he's got a long way to go to recover. He's sub 40% right now. He's at 39.4%. So if he can work it over the next 5-6 games, if he can get back up to 50%, or above, that's probably effective. Because if over the next 10-12 games he gets back to 52, 54, 55%, because he's not the most efficient guy, because he's going to take some shots outside, he's going to take some threes, he's going to take probably some ill-advised shots, and I think that's part of Nurkic's makeup, that he has the capacity to do the amazing. So when you have that capacity, you're going to do some dumb stuff from time to time, and you just got to kind of live with it. It's the same thing with a Steph or with a LeBron or a Dame. These guys that have
Aminu.
Yeah, I wouldn't go quite that far, but
I would.
These guys that have the capacity to make the incredible happen pretty frequently. To get that, you have to put yourself in that position. And to put yourself in that position, you have to do something that, if it doesn't go off, looks really bad.
Yeah, you got to take some chances. That's true.
So, and that for me is a successful spot for Nurkic to be in.
Well, we're going to know real soon whether or not we were right about how those things are progressing. It's so great to be in the season, and I already feel like it's going too fast. If it could just slow down, I would really appreciate that. Announcement from Blazers Edge that Blazers Edge Night has been announced. Yes. It will be on February 27th. So we will put a link in the show notes about how folks can contribute to Blazers Edge Night, where the Blazers Edge is endeavoring to send 2,000 kids to a Blazer game on February 27th. We ask readers and listeners to purchase tickets and donate, and they will be distributed to teachers, classrooms, parents, all kinds of folks whose kids maybe haven't had a chance to ever go to a game before, who've done really well in school, get a little reward. It's something that Blazers Edge has done for several years. We love being a part of it, and we're going to be talking about it from now until February 27th. So, Dan, you want to take us out of here?
Yep. As always, I should say a quick reminder. We'll continue to do this for the whole Blazers Edge night. If you have any questions, you can always go ahead and email blazersub@gmail.com. If you know anybody who wants to get a hold of some of these tickets, if you have a group or singles, whatever, go ahead and email. Specify that's what you're looking for, so they can help get this stuff lined up. Because there's a reason why we do this game in February, late January, February, March, because it takes a lot to get this all organized. I mean, you're talking about 2,000 people here. That's going to be 10%, actually more than 10% of the entire Moda Center is going to be filled with people who wouldn't normally get a chance to go. So this is a really, really big deal. So if you have the opportunity to help somebody out, go ahead and do it. As far as all the social stuff, remember, you can find us on Google Play as a part of the Almighty Baller Podcast Network, on iTunes, pretty much everywhere else you need for your podcast needs. On Twitter, you can find me at DMarang. It's at DMARANG. Tara, go ahead and let them know where you're at.
I am at TCB Biggs on Twitter. You can also get a hold of Blazers Edge at Blazers Edge, or you can head on over to blazersedge.com.
Well, that'll do it for Tara and I. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be thrilled to have you back next week. And hopefully we're talking about at least 3 more Blazers wins. Depending on when we record, we are going to have a special guest in here next week that all of you, for the most part, know and love. So something to look forward to. For Tara, I'm Dan. Thanks for joining us.